The Holocaust and World War II. The Holocaust began in 1933 after the anti-Semitic Adolf Hitler was appointed Chancellor in Germany. The Holocaust was a genocide, a mass murder of over 6 million Jews as well as millions of others. World War II began on September 1, 1939, when Germany invaded Poland. The war lasted 6 years. On September 2, 1945, Japan surrendered, after the United States dropped the atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The Great Depression from 1929 to 1939 caused a worldwide downfall of economics. People suffered harshly. Food, jobs, homes, and many other aspects of life were hard to get. The On to Ottawa trip, which was a group of hundreds of dissatisfied men who had walked out of their relief camps from the Department of National Defense, marched through Colombia, where they were stopped in Regina, and a riot broke out. The Munich Agreement happened in 1938. Adolf Hitler, along with several other countries, came to an agreement of taking over the land in Czechoslovakia. In 1939, the voyage of the St. Louis German boat, which contained hundreds of Jews, were denied entry into the United States. In 1941, the gassing of the Jews began in Auschwitz-Birkenau, the largest concentration camp. The Jews were tricked into believing they were going to get a shower, but instead they were declothed and put into the gas chamber, where they died of an inhalation from a compound mixture of cyanide. Operation Barbarossa was the end of the truce between Russia and Germany. This was also the largest military invasion in history, all caused from Hitler wanting more land. Some of the negative consequences of the Holocaust and World War II included an estimated death toll of about 75 to 80 million people, which would have been about 3% of the global population during that time. Many countries were destroyed during the war and the bombings. Many people were left without food, shelter, water, or even the basic needs of survival. Following World War II, the Cold War begun. Some of the positive consequences of the Holocaust and World War II were the technology that was created, such as internet, satellites, computers, and much of what we use today. The creation of nuclear weapons could have been both positive and negative, as we are aware that a nuclear war can happen at any time with the amount of nuclear weapons that were created during World War II. Civilian jobs increased, women, minority, and black rights were enforced, which pushed to the Civil Rights Act, eventually leading to the Justice for All Act. During the Holocaust and World War II, many people in that era either had no say in the matter, was against the war, or was all for it. It really depended on what group of people they were. As for the Jews, they were the main target being victimized by Adolf Hitler and the Nazis. America didn't want to get involved in the war, but when Japan bombed Pearl Harbor, they eventually joined. A lot of people during the era didn't know the harsh reality of the concentration camps until after they were discovered. More people suffered than those that were satisfied. Adolf Hitler was appointed Chancellor of Germany on January 30th, 1933. The first concentration camp was built in Dachau on March 20th, 1933. The Jewish boycott began on April 1st. September 15th, 1935, Germany, run by the Nazis, went from a democracy to a dictatorship. Germany began to include Austria in the Anschluss from March 11th to the 13th in 1938. The Great Depression ended in 1939 after 10 years. The Munich Agreement began in September of 1938. The beginning of World War II began September 1st, 1939. The first Nazi ghetto was built in October of 1939. The invasion of Denmark and Norway began in April. Germany attacked Western Europe in May, and the Battle of Britain began in July of 1940. And German forces invaded Yugoslavia and Greece in April of 1941. The United States declared war on Japan December 8, 1941, after the bombing of Pearl Harbor on December 7th. Nazi Germany declared war on the United States in April of 1943. The Warsaw Ghetto Uprising begun. German forces took over Hungary in March of 1944, and in June, D-Day, the invasion of Normandy and France. On January 18, 1945, the first death march took place. Nearly 60,000 prisoners were forced to march from Auschwitz to the southern part of the German-annexed Poland. On January 25, 1945, the second death march begun. This time, approximately 50,000 prisoners were forced to march from the Stutthof camp to the northern part of the German-annexed. On April 30, 1945, Adolf Hitler committed suicide. On May 7th and 8th of 1945, Germany signed surrender letters with the United States as well as Berlin. On May 8, 1945, the atomic bombs were deployed on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Japan surrendered after the bombs were dropped September 2, 1945, ending World War II. Some of the important sources are the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum, Holocaust Survivor Stories, the History Channel or Magazine, National World War II of New Orleans, Encyclopedia Britannica, and the National Museum of the Pacific War. Asking a question such as how do people think about your topic is not an easily answered question for my topic. This answer depends on the generation you ask. As for the individuals that have lived through, fought through, or survived the Holocaust or World War II, are most likely still scarred and affected, and they must live this every day. Some of the Jewish people in the concentration camps were marked with numbers on their arms, so some of those survivors today will constantly be reminded every time they see those numbers on their arms of the brutal death they escaped. World War II is not a subject taught in schools as often as it used to be about a decade ago. And even though World War II affects us all every day, whether we know it or not, World War II brought many changes such as technology, computers, the internet, satellites, so many more advanced technologies that help us in our everyday lives, such as GPS, watching TV, talking on our phones, or even doing this assignment on our computers. There has also been studies that show that some people believe the Holocaust was overly exaggerated and World War II wasn't as bad as it sounded. Some even say the Holocaust and the Nazi takeover never happened to begin with. Here is a list of my resources. This is a list of the continued resources. This last page is the resources of the images I used for my presentation.